everyone, my name's Marianna from Marianna's Caking Me Crazy, and today I'm going to show you how to create my painted wafer paper flowers. I've had a lot of people asking me how I create them. They are quite eye-catching, but in all honesty, they are super simple to make. So, to make these, you will need some wafer paper. You will also need a small ball of fondant. You can choose any colour, it's up to you. You'll need to choose a cutter. I have this cutter. This is just one I had in my stash and I liked the shape. Use any cutter you have, any flower cutter to create your flower. Don't rush out and buy this particular cutter. Experiment with what you have. You'll need some gel colours. Today I'm using black and gold, but you can use any colours you want. You can also use more than 2 colours. It's completely up to you and the colour scheme you're working to. You'll need some edible pearls. Again, choose whatever colours you like. Some piping gel, a spare plate, a pair of tweezers, a paintbrush, a foam petal pad, and some chucks. Now the chucks is what we're going to be using to apply the gel colour to our wafer paper flowers. So please make sure it's a clean one. Don't use the one that you've just done the dishes with. If you don't have chucks cloth, any fabric with a weave through it, well, let's face it, all fabric has weave, but if it's quite a textured weave, it will give you a lovely effect. So give that a go. Okay, well now that you know everything you need, let's get started. So I've just made a little bit of space and moved all my materials and tools to the side. So what we do first is we just take a sheet of wafer paper. As you can see, it's quite thin. If you live in a dry climate, it will be quite brittle. So try and be a little bit careful with it. It does have a right and wrong side. It might be a little bit hard to see, but the right side is nice and smooth and has a bit of a sheen finish. The wrong side has all sorts of little bubbly pockets on it. So I'm actually going to use the wrong side of the paper today because I feel that when I make my flowers, it gives them a little bit of texture and helps the paint to give a little bit of dimension. So, first of all, just using your petal pad underneath your wafer paper, you just lie it flat and then take your cutter and gently press it into your wafer paper and make as many as you need. I do 3 for my flowers. You might do 4 or 5, depending how full you would like it to be. There's no right or wrong when you're making these kinds of things. It's all up to your imagination. So it might be a little bit hard to see, but I've made an indentation, and that's going to give me a guideline to cut out my shape. So take your scissors. I find it easy to just cut out one set at a time rather than try and cut them all out on the same piece of paper. So following the line. Now don't be too worried about getting that line exact. Can be a little bit hard to see, but remember, in nature not everything is perfect, not everything is uniform. So it just adds to the character of your flower. So that's that. Very simple. Now I've actually cut out some earlier, so you don't have to watch me cutting out 500 petals. So once we've got that, the next step is to, I think I forgot to mention earlier, I actually have some A4 paper here. This is just to protect my workbench so it doesn't get full of paint. So once you've spread your cutout shapes onto your paper, just start by adding some of the gel colour that you're going to use to paint your wafer paper with. Now you do not want to dilute your paint because moisture and wafer paper are not really friends. if you place water on your wafer paper, it will disintegrate. So even putting too much colour will eat away at your paper. So we want to do it quite sparingly. So just grab a piece of your chucks and you just lightly dip it in the gel colour. Now you want to sort of give it a bit of a tap around the edge. You don't want it to be super thick because, you know, you want it to be light and delicate. And then you just start to tap away and paint your flower. So give that a little bit of time to dry for a second. We will flip them and paint the backs as well, because there's nothing worse than seeing a flower that has beautiful colour on one side and nothing on the other side. As you can see, it's very easy. And it's very quick compared to making sugar flowers. So if you get a last minute order, this would be a perfect technique to use or suggest to your client or family member, whoever's asking for that special cake. These would even look great on cupcakes, just one flower in the middle of each cupcake. And these ones I've made earlier that you saw, I've actually had those for quite a while now, so they do store quite well, nothing's happened to them. I do live in a dry climate, but I'm sure if you stored them in a shoebox with one of those little silica packs that absorb moisture, they would keep quite well. So on to the last one, and then we'll give them a little flip. So we'll flip them over. Oh, that one I've already done both sides. So this is what I call a base colour. The base colour is what sort of will bring out your next layered colours, especially if you're going to use a metallic colour like I am. And just a few more. So this is actually black, even though it looks a bit green on the plate. Probably should have given it a little bit of a mix. Okay, so carefully now, just flip up your wafer flowers. Hopefully you can all see what I'm doing. They might stick a little bit to the paper, so just be a little bit careful. Now I'm going to put some gold highlights on my flowers. So I'm just going to add it to the same plate because I don't really like washing up. I don't know about everybody else, but one of my pet hates. So I'm just going to get a clean chucks though. So I don't really want to mix the two colours. I'm just going to sort of dab on the top and then just lightly give it a tap. And you can see how it comes out and really brings out the flower. As I said, there's no right or wrong, so if you get a bit of a chunky paint spot in one corner and not so much in the other, that just adds to the effect. I wouldn't worry about it. And do the backs as well, because when you want them to curl up in a second, you want them to look nice and uniform. Don't want just one boring black side. Whoops, one got stuck to me. Okay. And the last one. There. Now you can, oops, probably see how we're starting to get some dimension there. So, now comes the fun part of constructing the flower. Just give them a little gentle pull up Make sure they're not sticking to your paper, because that would be terrible. So I just quickly went and washed my hands, and I've put all the petals we've cut out onto a clean piece of paper so they stop sticking. Now we're going to need some of the piping gel. The piping gel is going to help us stick the flowers together. I find using piping gel is better than water. That's just a personal thing. If you put too much water, as I mentioned before, then it's going to eat away at your paper, which is fine if that's the sort of effect you want, but I don't really want holes in my flowers. So just start off by putting a little dab. Choose one that you don't think is fantastic for the bottom, because no one's really going to see it. You can give it a little bit of a twirl and twist to give your petals a little bit of shape. We will do it after we've stuck it all together, but it's good to give it a little bit of a helping hand as you're going along. And then just start piling up your flower. Now I might use, because I've got quite a few here, I might use a few. Just sort of rotate them so that you're getting that sort of layered flower effect. You don't want to stick them all on top of each other in the same direction, because that's not going to give you the look that you want. So now we've got this. Now you can just work each petal in, being gentle, but at the same time it will give, because the gel color you've used has enough moisture to let the wafer paper be flexible. So you can see I'm really rolling it in there, and it's starting to give some nice shape. And you just do that all the way around. Now you might even want to just do the first few layers and leave the outer layers flat. It really depends on the look you're going for. And in cake decorating, it's all up to you. There's no right or wrong. Whatever you come up with is perfect. So hopefully you can see that I'm just sort of playing with them in between my fingers, just to give them a bit of shape and movement. You might even want to give them a bit of a pinch, because flowers, when you see them out in the garden, they move all at different directions, the petals. They don't all necessarily go in the same direction. So that sort of gives you a full bloom there. You can see that the colour, and it's sort of curled up there. So now we have to create a little centre for our flower. So taking a little piece of your fondant, you can colour it. I'm just using white today. You can actually paint if you don't want to. We're going to put edible pearls on our centre today, but on this flower you can see I've actually just taken a paintbrush and painted the centre for a completely different effect to, say, this one. Whoops. So again, up to you and the look you're going for. So I'm just going to pinch a bit here. I've got some colour on my hands already from touching and manipulating the petals, so it will give a bit of colour to my fondant. You can always wash your hands, but I'm not too concerned today. It just adds to my flower. Just sort of measure out. You don't want a huge centre, because then it's going to really take away from your flower. So I'm just going to use a little ball. Give it a bit of a roll. Make it like a little round flower centre should. Just give it a little bit of a test in the middle of your flower. You really don't want it to look too heavy. Don't forget also that you're going to stick pearls on it, so that's going to add extra bulk. So make your fondant a little bit smaller for that. So I think I'm quite happy with that size there. It's not quite in the center, but I'm just giving it a bit of a measure, so I haven't stuck it down yet. Alright, so to stick the pearls onto your fondant center, I take my paintbrush and I add some piping gel all over, like that. Give it a good coat. Then I just take it and place it into the balls on the plate. And then just give it a bit of a, it will go a little bit out of shape, but just give it a bit of a push back into shape. Don't worry if any fall off. This is just to try and get a majority coat, so you don't have to sit there and put every single one on individually. Okay. Now, just take your piping gel brush and just brush in the little areas you can see that are sort of got bits of fondant poking out, and give another little dab into the pearls. Now I'm just trying to give them a little bit of a push in so they just stay secure. So once you've got it pretty well covered, then I like to take my brush and give another little coat again, and then I take my tweezers and I get the ones I want and just manually pop them on with the tweezers. So once you've got your center completely covered or to your liking, just another little dot of piping gel in the middle, and very carefully, because I've got quite sticky fingers, you pop it into the center. There you have it, my painted wafer paper flowers. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I look forward to showing you something else very soon. Bye for now.